right? Be happy about it. It's your business, you own it. It's your baby, it's your child. Do you throw your baby away with the bathwater? No. Okay? So during the good and the bad times, remain enthusiastic, because you're the leader. If you lose your enthusiasm, as your employees will as well, and then before you know it, your business is starting to sink. Okay? Yes? Yes. All right. Now, after I go over, Dr. Williams, after I go over with my class what entrepreneurship is, okay, and what the characteristics are of people being successful, because that might scare them off, or that might entice them to want to do this. Okay, and at the 8th and 9th grade level, it could go either way, and they could definitely change their mind. When we jump from that, we're going to go into what the motive is of starting a business. Yes, you want to do things, start a business that you enjoy. Javier is an athlete, so he might want to open up his own gym, or might open up a batting cage. Anybody else want to share if they ever opened up a business, what they would want it to be? Eileen? A veterinary clinic? Anybody else? Real quick. Yoel?
A sports authority.
A sports authority, competition type, or maybe we'll get into that. Maybe you would want to open your own sports authority, which would be a franchise, which we're going to get to later in the week. Anybody else? Noel, what would you want to open? A hair salon? Okay. Well, anyways, whatever it may be, hair salon, a sports authority, or a competitor to sports authority, a batting cage, and a veterinary clinic. I would go over with them that obviously they need to make money. They need to pay their bills. Okay? Obviously, I would go a little bit more in depth, Dr. Williams, but definitely this is when I would throw in profit motive. Okay? Everything that they do, from whom they hire, how much they pay them. Obviously, because if she's going to be the veterinarian, she needs a secretary, right? Right? I know she would probably love to pay the secretary $25 an hour, but that's not conducive to profit motive. Okay, so I would definitely jump into that. Talk about the risk taking, which we already said. You're going in, you're spending $65,000 or more. You're investing into a new computer. You're investing into new furniture. But you're not going to come in and sit down on a couch that somebody has owned for the last 30 years, or however long the business was in place. You want to have your own stuff. Okay? Excuse me. Obviously, you have competition, from hair salons to veterinary clinics to sporting goods stores to you name it, right? There's competition there, which you need to defeat, which may be hard, right? Or you know what? It is going to be hard no matter what. Whether you're a small guy, right? Or whether you're going to maybe open a franchise, right? You are still even competing against other stores, other sports authorities, other McDonald's. Do we understand that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and then obviously supply and demand. Does anybody have experience with supply and demand and can tell me in a nutshell what it is? Quickly. All right. Yes. Go ahead.
Supply is the goods or the service, and then demand is how much people want it. If they really want it, they're going to be asking for it over and over again, pay whatever price they have to, and do whatever it takes.
Okay. Obviously, you want your supply to fluctuate, right? At times, you want it to be high because you want to order it, right? But you want the supply to dwindle because the demand is so high for your good or service. You understand? Yes? And the higher the demand, the more your price point can rise, which would what? Create your profit, which satisfies your motive. Got it?
Yeah.
Now, when you open up your business, and this is what I would explain to them quickly for the sake of this project, is that there are several different kinds of business ownership. You can have a sole proprietorship, which they would be the only owner, right? When I lectured about this a few weeks ago, my students didn't understand that it was like, okay, well, you're the only owner and employee. No, you're the only owner. On paper, you're the only owner, but you have several employees. You can, okay? Or it could be a partnership, okay, where it's a business owned by 2 or more people who share the risks and rewards, all right? This is when, David, I would go over things like unlimited and limited liability, okay? Because obviously with a sole proprietorship, there's some pros and cons to that, okay? Obtaining financing is going to be a little bit harder because when William goes to the bank and says, I want a $100,000 loan, okay, who's in business with you? It's just me, okay? Meaning that if he defaults on his loan, can they go after anybody else, guys?
No.
No. So is it going to be easier or harder for him to obtain financing for his business? Harder, right? That's definitely a disadvantage, okay? An advantage of being in a sole proprietorship is that you're the only boss, right? It rests and lies with you. All the responsibility is on you, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? Because you're like, okay, it's all on me, but then again on some days, oh man, it's all on me. right? So it all depends on, you better be enthusiastic about it in order for it to be a success. With a partnership, like I said, 2 or more partners, an advantage in terms of the financing, right, is that, excuse me, is that there are more people to go after. So if William, Noel, and Kelly walk into a bank and say that we would like to purchase this business, let's say it's $165,000, they will run all 3 of their credit scores, and if they default, there's 3 people that they can go after, meaning it's easier to obtain financing, which is a definite advantage. Some disadvantages with a partnership is, what if Noel gets into a fight with Kelly and Kelly says, I can't work with you anymore. If there's a fallout, right, obviously the, how can I say, the operations are going to start to break down. Okay? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. And then the other type of business ownership is a corporation. They would obviously be taking notes, as I would normally be going a lot slower with this and taking questions as well. A corporation is a company that is registered by a state and operates apart from its owners. Okay? And then obviously I would talk about the advantages as well, meaning that it's limited liability. In corporations, you have limited liability, meaning you're only liable for the money that you put in, as opposed to partnerships and sole proprietorships, okay, where that they're responsible for the whole debt of the company. If the company fails, they're responsible, but meaning they have to pay it all back. Do we understand that?
Yeah. Yes.
And an advantage of sole proprietorships and partnerships is that they're only taxed once, whereas corporations are taxed twice, which is called double taxation, which of course they would have plenty of questions about, and that's when we would start going into corporations in terms of when they sell stock and they make something called dividends, which is going to be in their vocabulary, and I would explain the whole double taxation idea. Okay, so I would go over the several advantages and disadvantages of each type of business ownership. Okay, and before I get into the other ways of organizing a business, which would be cooperatives, nonprofit organizations, and franchises, I would give them a few minutes to brainstorm about what kind of business they would want to open, a sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation. Okay, and then I would give them a few minutes to brainstorm about that, and then present to the class why they chose that particular kind of business ownership. Okay, and also towards the end of the week, or maybe even the first day, I'm not sure how I would do it. I would bring some. I would contact my contact at Chase Manhattan Bank, which is around the corner. Have him come in and explain to the students how they would attain a business loan, the paperwork that's needed, because again, most of these kids don't even have a bank account, let alone have an idea of how to attain a loan. Okay, so so basically they would be learning from my lecture, from real world examples that I would be giving them, question and answer, and excuse me, and a guest speaker such as a personal banker that can explain the loan process. Okay, we would go into cooperatives, nonprofit organizations, and franchises, which is a lot deeper of an example, and then we would go forward from that. How I would make my ESOL accommodations. I have Nicole here, okay, who's a new student from Guatemala, and I would have her sitting close to me, giving her preferential seating, and I would have her sitting next to Nylene, who's a Cuban American who speaks both English and Spanish, who will be able to translate for her on the fly. Okay, I would also give my my ESE students preferential seating as well. We have Gabrielle here and we have Ebony here, again closer to me. Okay, so they feel more involved being closer to me. Okay, with group work I'm very flexible. Okay, I would have them, maybe I would match them high and low, or maybe low and low, depending on what I was trying to achieve. Okay, and in terms of the enrichment, I have my advanced students, William, Noel, Kelly, Liz Marie. Okay, if they finish ahead of time, we can definitely jump them into 6.2, which would be getting into things such as production, procurement, the marketing aspect, management, and so forth. We can let them maybe get into that vocabulary, and maybe either give them some kind of extra credit work or just have them jump ahead. All right, thank you.
Wait, yeah.
And the way that I would be assessing the students on our first day would be completion of bell work, which I do normally with my classes. Participation. Okay, these students are very good, but I have some classes obviously that some kids are quiet as a doornail. So obviously I would try to, raise them up by letting them know that I assess their participation as well. Obviously we're going to build towards traditional assessments such as quizzes, and exams, traditional exams, obviously with at least 5 to 6 questions testing for mastery for each objective. Again, I broke them up into groups to present which kind of business ownership they would like to pursue. Obviously, they would be coming up, and I would have a rubric which I can email to you, what I would use to grade their presentations on content, diction, the level of their voice, and so forth. Other assessments that I could have is when we have the guest speaker, right? Participation with asking questions to the guest speaker, and also maybe a reflection paper on what they learned from the guest speaker, right? Or maybe they'll write a letter thanking the guest speaker for coming and asking the guest speaker certain questions that maybe they can start corresponding via email, so they can learn the process hands-on with the gentleman, because obviously he's not going to be able to come in every day, right? But they can definitely learn from emailing him and getting some kind of correspondence, because again, my students very well know that in the next 5 to 10 years, this is something they're going to be jumping into. Okay, so there's several different kinds of assessments depending on the way that our question and answer periods have been conducted. Depending on how much knowledge, prior knowledge they have, I will be able to decide what kind of assessments that I want to use. Okay, thank you.